Yes. So I was saying, so we are lucky today we have three great educator innovator. So they represent California Community Colleges and California State University and the University of California systems. So together we are gonna have a live discussion, bringing diverse perspective on this important topic. So for today, the agenda, so we will start with a presentation. So each of our panelists will present their work first, and then following the presentation, we will move into an engaging Q&A. So we will have a live conversation with our community. So feel free to type your questions in the chat. So now we would like to introduce our panelists. So first, we have my colleague from San Jose State, Dr. Yu Chen. So Dr. Chen is an associate professor at our School of Information System and Technology and at Lucas College and Graduate School of Business. So her research focus is emerging technology education for social good. So she leads the multi-university AI for social good education project sponsored by the NSF IU's program, which has engaged over 2,500 undergraduate students and generated over 500 innovation projects in over 50 classes among 3 universities. So undergraduate student achievements include awards at our CSU Student Research Competition, Entrepreneurship Competition, Incorporated Startup, and Student First Author Publication. So Dr. Chen also volunteered teaching computer science and AI at K-12 schools. And next, we are joined by Dr. Christina Serrano. Dr. C, aka Dr. C, is an educator and innovator at the intersection of technology, education, and entrepreneurship. With a PhD in education from UC Berkeley, she teaches across multiple disciplines at Berkeley, including the Haas School of Business, and the Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology, and the School Education. She also served as the Director of Early Career Online Business Education at Stanford University. Dr. C leverages AI tools across her work to enhance student engagement and promote metacognition. So she empowers students to be change makers through hands-on projects and innovative course design, driving innovation and societal impact within and beyond the classroom. We are very excited to have you both. And now I will hand over to my colleague, Fabi, to introduce our final panelist.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Fabiola Torres here, coming to you from Los Angeles. I'm first and foremost an instructor of ethnic studies, and I am at Glendale Community College, which is why I'm very honored and happy to be introducing Samantha Garagliano, who is my colleague from Glendale College. She is currently the division chair of the Language Arts Division. She was our distance ed faculty developer at Glendale Community College. She has been all around an innovative practitioner as a teacher, humanizing online education, just an amazing online instructor who has really provided a strong impact in the community college community. It's interesting how lonely we are as educators. We're all very siloed in our practice, and I found out that she, like me, was an AI enthusiast just by interacting in the AI higher ed world, and found out that she had an amazing presentation at the online teaching conference. And so dealing with active learning and AI. So this is how I reached out to her and said, I have to have you featured in our first town hall for our first, as in the first town hall that we are hosting. And she of course said yes. So I'm very, very happy that she is here with us. And since I introduced her last, I would love for Samantha to go first in sharing her introduction to the work she's doing, any initiatives, how she implements active learning, and all of our panelists are going to just give us a taste of their work and their humanity in relation to AI, their practice, and their just overall innovation. So Samantha.
Thank you so much, Fabi, for the introduction, and thank you all for having me here. And thank you all for attending. Anytime I get to talk about this, as I'm sure many of you share the same sentiment, it's so exciting. It's so invigorating. After I go to a conference or a webinar or a presentation, I want to go and do everything all at once. And that can be very difficult. But with AI, it's possible, and small baby steps. So that is what my presentation at the online teaching conference was about, how to use AI to help you create engaging and inclusive courses, not just online, but I teach online courses and AI helps me. So this is just a little small segment of that, just a brief introduction. 3 things today that I'd like to share with you. When I went to the online teaching conference, everybody asked, give me the prompts, give me the queries. So my slides today are just that. We'll start with the first one here. Let me know if there are any issues. Thumbs up. Excellent. Thanks so much. Okay, so here's a query. Before we look at this, I just want you to imagine a world where every student has the opportunity for personalized learning. That would be incredible, right? But as educators, we know that creating that world for 30 students in each of our classes, 60 students in each of our classes of 5, 6, 7, 8 classes can be overwhelming. I created this world for my students while I homeschooled my 2 students, my children during COVID. I homeschooled and I created this incredible world where everything was personalized to them. But it really fueled my desire to do this in my own online courses at Glendale Community College. But I knew to do this huge task, I would need a lot of help. And that's where AI comes in. So as I said, I'm going to share with you 3 different ways in which I use AI, and I'm talking specifically today here about large language models. So Poe, GPT, Claude, Gemini are what I use. Here is one prompt that illustrates how I use AI as my teaching assistant. So in this query, I'm asking for suggestions aligned with universal design for learning to help students with various learning styles. You see the 3 learning styles here, and I'm wanting suggestions to disseminate this material to all of the different learning styles in my course. We all know how crucial personalized learning is, yet course content is often designed with a default approach, right? Whether that's our own biases or just how it's always been done. We know that it can be really time consuming to do this, but as you see with this query, AI can really cut down on that time. I know often I'm thinking, how can I make this PowerPoint be for a hands-on learner? Well, I just ask any LLMS to do that for me. And so this is the query that I use here. And you can, of course, interject any topic, any course, any level for your own class. Another way that I like to use AI, and specifically, again, large language models, is to help students interact with that course content in a more effective way. And so providing them options to demonstrate their knowledge really sparks their interest in something. How often do we hear when we ask students about a topic or our course, I'm not interested in that. I'm only taking this because it's required. I don't see how this is going to apply to my life. Well, AI can really help you demonstrate that. Here you see the query is to create an authentic assessment based on the students, based on the students' Preferred medium. What does that mean? Well, I have had students use music to convey their understanding of nonverbal communication. I've had them use film. I've had them use podcasts, paintings. And so something that they're interested in, they go to AI, I go to AI, and I give them options for demonstrating their work. So the first strategy I used was how I provide the content towards different learning styles, and you can also use different student demographics as well. And this learning strategy really hits on how they can work with that course content to demonstrate their learning. But the last one, my favorite one, and I know I'm moving quickly because we have short time, but this is my favorite, so I want to get to this, is really how students can use AI to have agency over their learning. Because to me, at the end of the day, when students leave my class, I teach communication studies. I want them to become better public speakers, but in the end, I want them to learn how to learn. And so I think it's our responsibility to teach them how to use AI as a tool to learning. And so this is that query where I have students go to these tools themselves and work with the tools to develop their own assignments and their own assessments and their own rubrics for my course. And then it becomes such a rich educational experience because those courses where they said, I have to take it for a requirement, becomes something that they're interested in, if only because this is such an engaging way to work within the course. I have an example here, and this is the last thing I'm going to show you. I had a student athlete in my class, and you see I've interjected all of the blanks in that past query. I'm a student athlete in an introduction to public speaking class. Baseball is my life. I play catcher. My instructor asked me to create this boring assignment based on my interest to illustrate nonverbal communication. I am, a visual learner. Can you please create 3 options for this? This student came back to me, didn't want to do this assignment, wasn't interested in this class. And then he said, how can I cut down my 10-minute speech to 5 minutes? Because I want to talk about the assignment that I created and that I completed. And it's beautiful. And you guys can do it too with AI as your tool. Thank you so much for letting me share these 3 strategies very briefly and very quickly with you. I'm so excited to be here yet again.
Thank you so much, Samantha. That's wonderful. And I especially appreciate you sharing the prompts. Even earlier today, I met with our faculty who just got assigned to a new course. So she says she's gonna also using similar approach to use AI to guide some of the course redesign activities. So I will definitely share those prompts with her as well. Now let's have our second panelist, Yuchen, to share her insights, how she integrates AI into her class. I have worked with Yuchen on projects before and also invited her for presentation for my AI XR Institute. Our faculty really enjoy the presentation. I hope you will also enjoy it and get prompts, inspiration from this presentation as well. Yuchen, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Linji. I'm going to share my screen, and thank you so much, Samantha. I wish I were in your class, and I've taken so many notes about the prompts, and I'll try some of them in my class next semester. Thank you. All right, so instead of sharing about how we are using AI to facilitate learning, potentially I'm going to focus a little bit on how we are teaching AI to students of different disciplines. And I'm going to introduce the project AI for Social Good, which is an interdisciplinary undergrad AI education project across multiple California State University campuses, and also facilitated by the CSU Office of the Chancellor. So before talking about that, I just want to share a very quick story. That's fall 2018 when I first joined San Jose State. The first thing I encountered, it was the wildfire, and at the same time, I was teaching AI among business students, and the focus is pretty much on how to use AI to increase profits and make for marketing and making things more efficient and bringing more revenue and things like that. And I think it's very helpful for students to know. On the same hand, I was thinking, we're in the Silicon Valley. Is there anything we can do to help students to be more socially responsible as future leaders? And fast forward 6 years later, that is the AI for Social Good project, where we have over 2,500 undergraduate students participated, who generated over 500 student projects and involving 3 universities. Over 50 classes participated within CSU, and more than 26 publications generated by the pedagogy or student-led publications, and multiple media coverage as well. And we're so grateful to have the support and collaboration from the industry. List a few here, and also the consulting companies, IT consulting companies, as well as the public sectors, government, and also nonprofit organizations. Now you may wonder, what exactly is AI for social good? So I'm going to very briefly talk about the learning modules on a very high level. So students who are in the AI for Social Good project can be shorter term or longer term, depending on the classes. They first identify social problems within their own communities, not global problems, but their local problems. And then they learn about AI concepts or AI applications through hands-on labs or cases. And finally, they learn about AI innovation by proposing or prototyping AI-powered solutions to address their social issues in their own local community. And we give them the framework of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and students are going to pick one or some of the goals that they can see manifest in their own communities. And I'm going to talk about the early stage. That's in 2019, when we first introduced the AI for Social Good project. And this is the classroom at San Jose State University. All of them are business students with no coding background. And we invited the tech company leaders to teach students how to use a no-code way to develop a chatbot. That's in 2019. And very few people heard about chatbot. And at the same time, we bring our City of San Jose staff to share with us what are some of the most urgent issues in downtown San Jose. And students, upon hearing those issues, they all develop their own chatbots to address some of the issues. And through the and more details, you're welcome to check our paper. And we find that for students, it's important to use the appropriate technology that match their technical experience, choose the relevant scenarios, and also align that with their future career development. And moving on to 2020, everything switched online, and we thought maybe we are not able to do that anymore, but actually it's totally opposite, because during COVID, we witnessed way more social issues, and students' empathy and innovation just blossomed through this course experience. And because the final pitch competition was held online, and we were joined by journalists to watch student presentations, and this is one of the projects featured by ABC 7 News of our students. They propose and have some initial prototype of addressing the food insecurity issues during the lockdown, where they try to just take a photo of what is in their fridge and identify the ingredients by computer vision and propose recipe. This is back in 2020. And now it's no longer something new, and a lot of us can just use ChatGPT to do that. But we're really amazed 4 years ago, students can propose and prototype this. And yeah, so it's a great experience to see how students can transform suffering into empathy and innovation. And then moving out of the transition out of the pandemic, we're moving towards the theme of sustainability, such as climate change and recycling and reservation of energy, etc. And we find that through our study, students not only learn about AI, but also about real world sustainability issues, and enjoy the collaborative and creative work. And I know time is up, just quickly show some of the student work. I'm going to show some of the featured projects from CSU AI for Social Good Students Student Symposium last year. And those are some of the chatbots developed by students to help their residents address food insecurity issues, about educating them about the pollution under the water, and also saving water through chatbot. And this year, and this is one of the project teaching residents how to compost. And recently, those are a group of undergraduate students, their work just recently published in American Conference on Information System, going on right now, actually today. And this year, we are moving to support students to develop prototypes using generative AI API. So, and this is one of the projects where students develop a website that is powered by OpenAI API to make recommendations of recipes. So we have more student examples posted on our website. You're welcome to check if you're interested. And what we learned is, okay, we'll just skip this slide and just directly come to the conclusion. Takeaways is to encourage students to learn technology, especially AI, relevant to their own experience, and empower them to leverage their cultural assets to create solutions relevant to their communities. And finally, enable them to explore diversity, equity, and ethics of their community and AI. And here are some of the sample publications from this project. And here's our website, aiforsocialgood.org, to spell everything out. And we want to thank the National Science Foundation to support our program, support our project. Thank you.
Thank you, Yu-Chen. That really inspired me. I do a lot of project-based, and a lot of us here on this webinar, we do project-based learning activities. And to have students create their own chatbot was such a major inspiration. Thank you so much. I teach ethnic studies, and I'm like, we're going to solve the world's problems. So
yeah, it's always inspiring, no matter how many times I have seen this presentation. You maybe at some point later on, if there are certain modules, I remember you mentioned certain modules like other faculty might be able to adapt into their courses. So it might be helpful for you to share those resources with our community as well.
Yeah, definitely feel free to reach out, and we're always eager to support other faculties to try and adapt some of them into their classrooms. But we'll talk about that later. But yeah, thank you for that. I'll put my email in the address.
Yeah, thank you.
So next we have Cristina Serrano, who will be sharing her insight and how she uses AI. Oh, and by the way, it's her birthday, so happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
And also, just one quick note, I attended her presentation during the AT Expo. At that time, she already talked about her experience using AI to engage students in collaborative learning experience. Since then, she's expanding the AI activities, all the creativities in her course. So I'm also looking forward to see what's new. Very excited.
Thank you. Well, I was going to say, it's a hard act to follow. Yu-Chen, I'm excited to hopefully collaborate. It looks like you're doing really cool work. And okay, I have a set of slides. They're not fancy, but they're really meant to help me kind of just walk through the examples. So I just finished our summer session. I both supported a course at Stanford, and then I was teaching 2 at Berkeley. So I just wanted to give examples of what I've been up to. I had the privilege to meet Fabiola at, it's called the Professional Learning Community. Many of you probably already know about it through PlayLab. And so as soon as I learned PlayLab, I like went crazy with it. So you're going to see a lot of Play Lab in here. I do love other AIs. I love to use ChatGPT and Claude, and then others that you can find on, there's an AI for that, for example. And I love to have students using AI as well as much as possible. But Play Lab I really like because it enables like a platform that both students and the educator can interact upon. So for the Berkeley Changemaker Gateway, this course is actually, it serves 200 plus students. It's fully online, and in the summer, it's asynchronous as well. And so the hard part, and then I managed about 12 like TAs who read student work and provide feedback. And so the really hard part about this course is that like large size and creating engagement with students when they are, you know, like all over the world doing whatever they're doing for their summer. And so I built chatbots for every assignment, essentially to support students in their learning process. And so they could have that more personalized experience, as Samantha was saying earlier, where they would be able to interact with the course content, which is about change making. So starting from, you know, who can be a change maker? Well, all of us. And you can do that at any scale and from any place and from any topic you care about. And that you just need to think about how you develop the skill sets and the mindset to do that. And so we teach the 3 C's, which is communication, critical thinking, and collaboration. So all courses that are Berkeley Changemaker courses are trying to foster that in some way, even if they're situated in other content. So this one is more of a general introduction into change making. And they go from like, hey, you are a change maker. This is growth mindset. This is how you lead. This is how you persuasively communicate. This is how you high impact team in order to make the change you want to see in the world. And so they go through that content. And so what I did is created a course assistant that is fully trained on all the content for the course, all the modules, because I was always reiterating or iterating upon the content, but it was trained on the assignments and the rubrics and just a lot of stuff. And that's just the references component that you can put into Play Lab. And so I use this to create rubrics, to lesson plan, to make announcements, to develop other chat bots that would support assignments. I then created that, as you know, with Play Lab, you can create a bot and then other people can remix it, or you can remix it yourself. So I had a workspace for my instructional team, and they were using it so that they could supply feedback to student work. So as they were grading student work, they were able to leverage it to and train it to their own personalized style. And these are undergraduates who were serving in this role in order to provide like really targeted quality feedback that is harder to do when you're, you know, managing. They had about 25 to 30 students each that they were managing and reading student work and providing feedback. And then Collaborate Bot is just an example of one of the bots that I made for a module where we focused on high impact teaming in order to drive change. And so that bot has a lot of instructions where it has AI personas, for example, that represent the typical kind of like college student, what their majors are, their interests, and it's a diverse set of teams. And the student interacts with the bot in order to have this kind of simulated problem solving component. So they are asked to, for example, solve a problem that is relevant to a college student. It could be like food insecurity, it could be financial aid issues, it could be academic pressures were some of the topics, but then students were able to interact with that bot and these AI personas to have like conversations and apply concepts and leverage them in order to solve that problem and create a solution with that AI persona team. So it's simulating that team making, which would have been more at the theory level if you're just, you know, just reading the content, but in this case, they got to do this interaction. So those are the different, I mean, there were a lot, but these are 4. Like I had one for their midterm, I had one for their final. It was all in the effort to say, okay, how do we create that scaffolding where they can go back and say, well, how do I think about this concept again? Or how does this apply to session 3 where we talked about this particular framework? And now we're applying it in this way. So that was how I used Play Lab there. Another course that I taught, so that was one framework where I used AI to support students on the level of assignments and on the level of grading and even learning experience design. I teach a course called Exploring Digital Pedagogy, which in this case, I created a workspace where the students, that was their task, was to create a bot to solve an educational problem of interest to them. And so similar to Yu Chen's work, right, they were thinking about how do we solve for these issues in education so that we can improve learning experiences for as many people as possible. And so these are examples of projects. So what I had them do was they were using things like AI image generators to create images because we wanted to like learn all the AIs as much as possible. And so here's an example of they would have a problem statement. They built a bot, and at the end they were showcasing those bots. I really kind of modeled on the PlayLab PLC format, just a little bit of twists. And so you can see they talk about what are the key features and functions, and they talk about their workflow and how the bot performs. And then they had a midterm version of this, and the goal was to say, okay, as you get feedback and as you play with it, what did you refine? What did you learn? So constant iteration and learning with AI was the focus of that. So in this case, this bot was serving students to take up opportunities available to them by knowing what skills do I have, what's available. That was that one. There was a resume builder one, and then one about like environmental and I'm sorry, like just like green environment, like good stuff, like how do we insert that into engineering as a topic? So that course really focused on, again, exploring how technologies such as AI, but also online learning, spatial computing, and other different digital tools were shaping the future of education, and really having students think about that very critically so that they could be a part of that, but understand like, well, here's what's coming. And then finally, at Stanford, I work to support one of the projects I'm on is this initiative for financial decision making, and it's all about scaling financial literacy globally. And so a course that this like fund was come from is Introduction to Financial Decision Making. So this was a 3-workshop series where students were asked to essentially take course concept and create a fintech bot. So we started with the first one was just like get onto the platform, get to know AI. And we did this in an hour and a half where they kind of just built up some AIs based on their interest. The next topic or workshop we focused on using, you might be familiar with Gamma AI, which is another sort of like you put in prompts to a platform that helps you generate slides or presentations. In this case, you can make them into web presentations, and this is free. And so the goal was for the students to create a persona, because they had been exposed to a persona where they were supposed to make decisions for them around like, do you get a student loan, or do you buy this car at this rate? And so they had to create a persona who was having a financial struggle, and they were introduced to different fintech tools out in the world, such as like, Mint, et cetera. And they were supposed to say how that persona used that financial tool and then share the story in this kind of, overarching story of the use of that. So in this case, you can see the students, this group of students created this with AI. And finally, after that, the final workshop was like, okay, now you're going to build like a legit fintech bot that will address like one of 6 topics that you've covered in this course, and you're really applying the learnings around personal finance to something that might be helpful to others who would use your work. And so they created these fintech bots that focus on budgeting or investing, saving, et cetera. And then they had to create like a little logo for it. And then they put it into this platform we use called Pinecone, which is part of the Mighty Networks platform, and something we're building out to scale the financial literacy content. And then so students were then asked to use each other's bots and give feedback. And you can see there's like a feed that essentially went from there. So those are my projects, but I also teach a sports tech class, which again, similar to Yu Chen's work, they are asked to create an actual product. We leverage a lot of AI there. I teach a critical studies and education course, and we partner with organizations. And so we're building bots to support project management and even advancements of other organizations' goals who are having a lot of social impact in education. So I use AI extensively, and I really appreciate the opportunity to learn from all of you about how you're using it so I can copy your work here with attribution, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You know, as we're all listening to these rock star educators and practitioners, we really get a sense of how our teaching and how student learning is changing and evolving. So I want to go ahead and ask the panelists this first question. In the spirit of transparency, I did share the questions to our panelists. And so I'm actually going to skip the first question because you all answered it already. So the question I have here is, how has AI influenced the way you assess student learning and provide feedback? Are there any tools or methods you have found particularly effective? And so just to I'd like to have who would want to answer first? I'll let it be this way. So Samantha, go for it. Since yes.
There we go. Where's the unmute button? I love this question because, like I said previously, I am focused on learning. So less of, right, the outcome, more of the journey. And too often, especially in this fast-paced, society that we live in, we want to get to the end point and the goal. And so I want my students to focus on how they get there. And AI has really enabled me to encourage them to slow down, to complete any project that they're working on in smaller segments, and then to get more meaningful feedback, not from just an AI tool, but from themselves. Because again, at the end of the day, once they graduate, once they leave my class, once they're in the quote real world, they're going to have to evaluate themselves, their own work. And I'm continually learning myself. And I think that I need to teach them how to do that. AI has empowered me to empower them. So for specific example, I have students use any tool that they want, and they have to turn in, it's like a rough draft, their work to AI. And we talk about, I know you have a question here about ethics and privacy and whatnot. And this is optional. And I give them feedback as well, but it really helps whatever AI tool that they use. Students have said it gives them the opportunity to complete self-evaluation, self-reflection in a less biased way. Because oftentimes they say, oh, I don't want to watch my recorded speech. Oh, I don't want to look at the essay that I turned in ever again. I just want to look at the A. And they don't sometimes even go back and see what I have written to improve. And I want to instill in them that it is okay, and it is something that you should want to have constructive criticism to improve. So using AI, they say, kind of removes, we talk all the time about humanization, but having something that isn't a human, they say, allows them then to look at their own work in a different light. And so that's been really helpful.
So Christina, would you like to ask your question since you have the floor?
Sure. I would love to hear, Samantha, if you don't mind expanding on like the nuts and bolts of implementing this approach to using AI for assessment. I am very curious how you then, for example, have them like evaluate their work from the perspective of, I'm my own educator here, and so therefore how have I demonstrated that I've done all the things that I need to do, and then in turn, how do you evaluate that, right? And so how are your grading structures? More nuts and sorry, it's like more brass tacks kind of a question, but I'm very curious how you organize that.
Yeah, this was one of the questions that came up at OTC as well. And I think, setting a foundation with students on whatever the assignment is. I know that you've done incredible work with chatbots. I've talked to Fabiola, who's done incredible work with chatbots, and having something like that in each assignment sets the stage for them to better understand what the expectations are of the assignment first and foremost, of the student learning objectives, the course objectives, etc. but then to have a discussion with them, and it's a public discussion where they're all able to say, actually, I really don't agree with this being an expectation or a requirement of this assignment. And then we work with that and we say, well, why do you think that is? As I said, I teach public speaking. We look at a lot of speeches. We look at what the book says, with what the good speeches should incorporate. But then we also have these conversations that are so much more rich, and they bring examples that say, actually, this contradicts what the book says. And so then we set up some sort of, expectations ourselves, just foundational guidelines. And then they create the rubrics. They often share their rubrics with each other and bounce off ideas. And sometimes even we have five students using the same rubric because they agree so much with what this rubric is. And then again, they assess themselves in, their speeches, their assignments, and then they create a portfolio of work that is more self-reflective. And it will say at the end of each speech how I accomplished the expectations for which I set forth. I will say that I look all of their rubrics prior to them assessing speeches or essays or outlines, and I just give the green light to their rubrics. But I've been, a silent part of their process all along.
Chen, would you like to chime in, or Christina, would you like to chime in relation to like feedback? And because, with AI, a lot of our colleagues feel like our teaching is going to be substituted by a robot. And, the feedback process is probably the most important part of our teaching. And so therefore, like, how is feedback part of, your process or your colleagues?
Yeah, sure. I can say a little bit. And actually, we did a survey a few years ago about what that was before generative AI. We asked students about some of the potential barriers and what chatbot can help. And one of them is a lot of them mentioned, at least for San Jose State, our students are very diverse, I'm sure, across California as well. For example, as Samantha mentioned, the learning styles and their interests, etc., but also their caring responsibilities, their work responsibilities, etc. And the teacher to student ratio, even including TA, actually is very low. And also, if you're thinking about their schedule, is so difficult, even though we are holding office hours. So just from the availability perspective, I think to a large extent, generative AI, or especially chatbot, it is reducing a lot of the barrier for students to ask for and seek for help. So that's the availability part. And then also, right now with generative AI, actually is able to provide more personalized feedback. And also the other thing is, I realize sometimes students, even if they're available, they may be too shy to ask for help. So sometimes they feel maybe it's easier to ask AI for help. But on the other side, I'm not arguing saying that's the only way and the best way to provide feedback, because of course there's some downside. I'm sure later we can talk about the ethics and things like that. But at least there's some benefits, and at the same time, something we cannot ignore includes, number one, do we really trust the content and feedback provided towards AI? And the second is the student data privacy and also bias that might involve, because right now everything is still on early stage. So there are a lot of issues we haven't tapped yet. So on one hand, we see some opportunities. On the other hand, we'll just be aware how we proceed with caution as well.
Awesome. Thank you for everyone sharing your insight. As we talk about students, so I think it's gonna be very important for us to address this question. So how have your students responded to the use of AI in their learning process? Have you observed any shifts in their engagement, performance, motivation, or ability to take control over their own learning? And along the way, if you have any lesson learned, if you have any aha moment, feel free to share with us as well. So how about we start with Christina, and then you, and then Samantha this time. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And then great questions in the chat, by the way, and resources. Thanks for audience sharing and questions. Okay, so with regard to my students really like the opportunity to use AI. And what's interesting at a place like Berkeley, and I'm sure this is like, it's all institutional dependent, and California may be very different than say other states. But in my case, for example, there are professors who are like, not so much as like maybe a year ago, but they will ban it entirely and say, no, absolutely not. And I don't think that's the right way to go about it. And I think students are still using it. And so I think it's a disservice to our students not to bring it forth into the classroom and use it. And I think students really appreciate that they're having essentially in my courses, I say this is a safe space for us to figure it out, because there's a lot to figure out here. And there's a lot of like areas that are problematic, speaking to this question from the top, where there's very serious concerns about data exploitation, privacy, et cetera. There's also just, it's not even data exploitation, it's exploitation of others who are, training the data, or who gets to have access to it and who doesn't. So we have all of those conversations in addition to saying, hey, this is also really awesome that we can expand or amplify our learning. It almost feels like you're getting superpowers. And at the other end of it too, it's interesting in the Berkeley Changemaker Gateway, despite the fact that like I constructed AIs to support their work, and we've had to establish like what are, guidelines for citing your use of AI. There's so much gray area, especially when you interact with an AI extensively. You start to wonder like, where did I end and where does the AI begin, and how do I appropriately attribute those things? And so those are conversations we're all having. And that connects to like, if you're in an academic institution, you do research as a scholar, you're saying, okay, before I can even provide my own opinion or insight about like what I think about this phenomenon or topic, I have to speak to all the scholars that have done work or have shared insight into this field as part of my literature review. And there's like cite, right? It's highly citing. And so you go into ChatGPT or something like Claude, and you're able to produce, I guess you could say, content that is associated with fields of work, and you don't know where it's drawing from, and you can't say, right, like this is how this work applies. And so these are conundrums that are struggles for my students. And so again, even though they had the opportunity to use it extensively, they would still not appropriately cite. They would still be shy about saying they're using it. And I didn't know what that was about. And then there was still very obvious cases where they completely outsourced their learning or the completion of the assignment to AI. And so now I'm really starting to struggle or to like wrestle with, how do I create learning experiences that would not make it such where it really puts AI in its proper place, which is that it's a thought partner. It's a supporter of your learning. It's not someone that should, or something that should take your work and just spit out ideas for you. And then that's what you're sort of presenting. And I get that students are really, the reality is that students have to make priorities. They have to make hard choices because there's demands on their time. They're not just students in many cases. They're also parents, or they're working full time, or they're taking multiple classes and they're trying to get through. And so AI becomes this really easy like way to sort of just go through the hoops of education. And then to me, I'm like, as a person that's like a learning scientist, I'm like, that's not what learning is supposed to be about. That's why I hate grading. So yes, that was a long answer to your question. Yes, they are highly engaged, and it's opened up a lot of like wonderful ways that students are like connecting to the learning. And at the same time, I worry about their use of it and how it will be detrimental to their learning as well, and their growth and development.
What's your thoughts? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was nodding while Christina was sharing, especially students are shy talking about they are using, but actually the truth is they're all using. And on the other hand, outsource a lot of their homework to ChatGPT. So yeah, for me, so at least the students I've taught, I experienced very similar things. on one hand, I feel they're more engaged in terms of getting the answers, getting the content from generative AI, etc. On the other hand, I feel there is a dropped level of engagement with their teammates and with the teachers, which I think ties back to what Samantha shared earlier. How can we actually create authentic assessment or assignments that actually engage them rather than they engage with ChatGPT as a shortcut? So I've been thinking a lot about how to, well, this ties back to your previous question about how to actually engage them through assignments. And one thing I was doing is I put my assignments into ChatGPT to see how quickly I can generate the answer as if I were a student. And typically it's very, very fast using my traditional way of doing, meaning I should do something to change. And second thing I'm trying to do is how we can create assignments so that it's not encourage students to get the answer, but actually encourage my students to use AI so that they can make their learning outcomes better, the quality of work better, as actually not as a way of get a quick answer, but actually enhance the quality. And so there are differences because teaching different levels of student at undergrad level. For the more junior student, for example, we're teaching programming. At the very early stage, if you throw a project to them and then they just use ChatGPT and they will give you a perfect solution. But if you ask them what is about, just no clue, right? So this is the case where we will need to give more scaffolding of how to properly use ChatGPT, use generative AI, etc. And then there are also more senior students in our AI for social good prototyping course. Student actually, our student MS student, they are not computer science students. So asking them to develop a full website using Python actually is not that easy. However, because they do have some more or less solid foundation in coding, they're able to leverage ChatGPT in a very engaging way to build the prototypes with a business academic background that was never able to do without the support of generative AI. So I think, yes, just to summarize, number one, what kind of assignments I'm creating, definitely that has to change from, was different from the traditional way. And the second is what is the level of students? And again, I'm referring back to the prompt from Samantha, different levels of undergrad degree. And yeah.
And Samantha, do you have anything you want to add on?
I think just great points made by both, that this is a tool, just like any other tool, and we could use it for good or we could use it for bad. And so I think as educators, it's up to us to show our students how incredible this tool can be and to explain, those ethical issues and to have conversations with them about it, and always to use it critically. So include within your course reflection on if you use this tool. So as I said, it's an option in my assignments and my courses, and I give them examples of what they could do. And I said, if you use this, please tell me, and let's have then a follow-up assignment on how well you were able to use it. And sometimes they said, this didn't help me at all. I will say that a lot of students, when I first say that we will have an opportunity to use AI to work in our course, they say, that's cheating, isn't it? And then, it's up to me to demonstrate how it can actually enrich their learning.
I know we're running out of time. There was a great source that was shared about looking at the environmental impact. I'm sharing it again. I think a lot of us are grappling because the question was asked, about the environmental impact of using AI. And I think all of us are still in the process of, learning about that. And we do thank, I think it was Roxanne, who shared the resource. Thank you, Roxanne, for sharing the resource. We have 1 more minute left, and I just want to thank everyone. I want to thank Learning Lab, Yingji, our panelists. We do have a form for us to fill out at the end. Here we go. I'm going to make sure I put it in the participant.
I just stuck it in the chat. It's just a feedback survey. It's like 3 questions, very brief. We would appreciate all your feedback.
Yes. And
you.
again, we thank everyone. We hope that you got some inspiration and, you know, happy school year 24-25, everyone.
Yay. I'm gonna send one link there. We recently, I did a presentation, also share this link with new faculty. It's Bloom's taxonomy revisit with AI. So when you develop and redesign your course, it's a nice way to revisit like what skill sets you are targeting for your students and related to different levels. You might have the reference if you want to redesign the way it will focus more on the human intelligence side. So help your student to showcase their skill. And at the same time, you can see what AI options you can integrate into the activity as well. Thank you, everyone. And we will have more exciting sessions in the fall as well. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.